6:30 in Reedfield, Maine. If you'll rise and join me with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, and welcome to the Reedfield Select Board meeting for December 10th, 2018. We did meet in executive session for about 25 minutes beforehand, and we will talk about that a little bit later on. We'll start with the minutes of November 19th, 2018. They are in your packet. Reviewing the minutes, does anyone have any changes? And there was one thing you were going to review in particular, Catherine, right?
Yes, and
Yep,
Chris did.
and it's correct.
Yeah, it is correct. So I
Okay.
would make a motion to approve the minutes as presented. Second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve the minutes as presented in the packet and published, which you can see online. All in favor? Thank you. Just a quick note, I'm not sure if anybody is actually hearing this. We may be having some audio problems going out on cable tonight. It is being recorded, so I'm maybe even talking to recorded people, I don't know. But at any rate, there'll be a video record of this meeting if it is not being heard on the cable station right now. So we'll proceed with the warrants, and their warrants. They are warrants 22 and, is that correct?
22 to 25.
22 to 25. And so the warrant in
the other one?
particular warrant 22 is a regular warrant, and I will speak to that in a minute. Warrant 22A was state fees of $18.85. And warrant 23 was the payroll. And then warrant 24 and 25, have those been signed yet?
They have not yet, no. Those
Okay.
ones will need to be signed this evening.
They'll be signed this evening, so they're in here. So they've not been reviewed.
They have not yet, no,
Okay.
other than by myself and Teresa. But
Okay.
You want me to give it a quick look through?
Yeah, why don't you go,
Whichever.
why don't you do that? So we'll discuss warrants, warrant 22. Was I supposed to come in and review that?
I think in lieu of John, yes.
Okay.
But certainly you can take some time at this meeting and do it.
So I guess, Bruce, if it's okay, I'd like to suggest that we put the warrants off for a few minutes so that Chris doesn't have to rush and come back to this in a few minutes.
Yeah, why don't we go ahead and take care of warrant 22 and 23,
Okay.
and then we will defray 24 and 25 to the end of the meeting. We'll also have a brief break in the middle of the meeting where we can just do a really quick look at those. So on 22, which was $65,540.50, just a few notes. The transfer station, $28,120.75 was included in that. The well drilling amount that you see in there was for the, I believe it's the East Reedfield Cemetery, which was to replace that pump. The $7,359.67, which is about 10 items down, is the Cobussy Watershed District. And we make 3 payments to them annually, so this is payment number 2 of 3. And other than that, Davenport was the fire station and brush removal. And are there any other questions on the warrant?
What do you mean, the fire station removal?
Well, the fire station, not removal, but it was some drain maintenance that was
Okay,
done there.
thank you.
Any questions?
Nope.
Then I would go ahead and move warrant 22 and 23 in the sum of $82,377.92. Can I have a second, please?
Second.
Any discussion on the warrant as moved? Seeing none, all in favor? Thank you.
I'm ready.
She's ready, so I guess, why hold off? Go
I
ahead.
hold off.
Okay, Eric. Cushing, the 27,000, that's the snow removal.
Yeah, that's the monthly payment
Okay.
for this time of year.
K&K Products, 2360.
K&K Products would be, that is for ice rescue gear for the fire department.
What was it?
Ice rescue equipment, so
the
they have
fire department?
they're not wetsuits, they're like a dry suit, but 4 suits, a number of ice picks, so basically life-saving for wintertime ice rescue.
And 2542 for legal fees.
Yes.
And the school district got their 296,413. And that is the bulk of the $366,617.77. Payroll was $31,855, so it's a total of $398,418.32.
I'll make a motion to approve.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve warrants 24 and 25 in the amount of $398,418.32. Is there any discussion on the motion? All in favor? Thank you. We usually try to review these ahead of time, so thank you for bearing with us with a little work there. You're first up on the agenda, and we'll get to you in just a few minutes. We've got a few other things to take care of.
Sorry.
Moving on to communications. Any members of the select board wish to say anything this evening?
Yes, Bruce, I would like to either formally or somehow officially start to get together the committee for Heritage Days. This is something that last year, to fill the void between years, just to keep Reed Field sort of a fun time in our minds, we did the Reed Field Festival, and I would like to be a part of that committee. I would like to call out and call for volunteers. If folks would be interested in helping us, if you have some ideas, we want to capitalize on some of the things we did for the festival. We've already had folks asking us about the kickball tournament again this year. So we have the trophy. It's completed, and we have it at the house, and so we'll bring that in. But just I'd like to get that officially going if we can, and certainly have a great year this year for Heritage Days.
Is there any problem with both of us working on it again?
Oh, we wouldn't want that. No, not at all. We never refuse volunteerism, I think.
All right.
I think we should.
Did that committee did that committee end its tenure with the last?
It did, yes.
So we would need to restaff that committee.
Yes, we do.
Okay, so why don't we make an appointment tonight of Dennis as the liaison and ask Chris to also support him and put that in a formal motion to kick off the process.
Yeah. It's always been a fairly informal committee, but I think that having a more formal
We
process
should
around
call
it-
for volunteers.
Yeah,
basically.
exactly, yeah. And I will say also that this is a fun committee. I mean, I've been
Yeah.
to some committee meetings, they were not so fun, but Dennis makes it fun, Chris makes it fun. It's really enjoyable work.
Yeah.
And there may be some people that'll want to do it again.
Yeah,
So I'd like to make a
absolutely.
motion to appoint Dennis Price as the Select Board Liaison to the Reed Field Heritage Days Committee for 2019, and to appoint Chris Sammons as a at-large member of that committee.
I second that motion. I guess I would be the person to second it. So we have those appointments before us, or designations. Is there any discussion? All in favor?
Yeah, let's do it. Yeah, amen.
You're duly
I
appointed.
guess I vote for myself. We voted for us.
Oh, you're
Okay.
supposed to vote for yourself.
Okay, good, all right.
We have, it would be a quorum
Actually,
without that.
That's right, exactly.
You're
That's right,
required
just
to
them.
vote on everything, you know, by
That's
law.
good, okay,
Yes.
that's excellent.
Unless there's a conflict. Any other members of the select board have anything that they would like to bring up tonight?
Just a couple things. The sidewalk looked great during our snowstorm, so it looks like our new equipment and personnel are working out well. The town looks decorated nicely, the fire department, the library, and the town office tree, and the candles in the windows, and all the other decorations that the staff has put up. And a big thank you to Kristen for just running down and putting that alert on. I got it already. So I think things are moving along nicely.
Transfer station is a joy to drive on now.
Yeah.
Oh, my word,
Hot
yes.
diggity. That's absolutely right.
You don't have to
Anybody
go
else?
ba-dum, ba-dum, ba-dum on your way in.
Anybody else? We're all set? Okay, great. We'll now move on to town staff reports. You have Eric's report. And Eric, please.
That over for me?
Yeah, I'll start with, we do have in the packet an email from the town clerk regarding the Boston Post Cane Award. And this is something that we typically hand out to the oldest resident. And our oldest resident had actually moved out of town. No other reason for passing this along, fortunately. But the former holder did move out of town. So we're looking for somebody who is 95 plus. Right now, that's the bar. We have identified a resident born in August 1st of 1923. So if you know of anybody born prior to that date or were yourself, we're looking for a new recipient. So I want to put that out there. I'll go through my report quickly. I don't have a completed treasurer's report. We're a little bit early in the month to have the check reconciliation and all that stuff put together. So that will be coming out probably at the end of this week, if not early next. But that will be coming.
Can we post that online?
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Absolutely. So the town manager's report, I will start with maintenance and infrastructure, and as you might expect, most of it has to do with winter maintenance. The sand shed at the transfer station is completed. We had replaced the old one. That is open and available for any resident of the town of Reedfield anytime the transfer station is open. There's a 2-bucket limit, but you can get that material anytime. You don't have to wait until it's snowing or until you think it's going to snow. We want folks to be prepared. We want folks to be able to deal with ice and other issues that might arise from melting. So absolutely, it's a community resource. It's fully stocked and will continue to be. So please take advantage of that. And also a reminder that we have sand buckets available through the Age-Friendly Committee and the Handy Helpers Program for anybody that might have trouble schlepping a 5-gallon bucket between their vehicle and their home and any place in between. So if you need any assistance and need some material, please give us a call at the town office. We're happy to bring buckets of sand to those who need it. So. Let's see, snow conditions are favorable for brush work, so that will continue as long as the snowpack allows. The winter road maintenance has been heavy so far this year, as you know. So that won't affect our fixed price maintenance contract. However, I do think that if things keep up the way they are, that we may come to the end of the season and go over budget on materials. And we'll have to address that if and when that happens, but I just wanted to let you know up front that it's a possibility. Moving on to, you had mentioned the sidewalk conditions, Chris, thank you. We had previously just had the snow blower attachment. We now have a sander attachment for that Bobcat, so we have the full package, and we'll be able to sand the sidewalk in any tight places in our parking lots and facilities with that attachment. So we're fully prepared now for whatever comes our way this winter. The other item I have is not winter related, but the Marinacook Lake Dam. We will be starting work on that as soon as water levels allow. We've had quite a wet early winter and late fall, and so that work that was originally planned for riprap has been delayed. However, we got an extension. I'll say Wendy Dennis, through her hard work, got an extension of our permits. So we now have an open-ended permit to do the riprap work over the course of this winter and be ready to start the full dam repairs in the spring. So quite a struggle to move forward with that project, but we're pushing through. So administration and personnel, I have a pretty Significant announcement here. We will be looking for a new town clerk as of the end of February. Robin Lint, who has been with us for 15 years consecutively, and for several years prior to that, as our town clerk, will be retiring. So I am very sad to see her go. She has done a lot for this community and certainly helped me well above and beyond anything in her job description, from organizing the Giving Tree and other things, volunteer events, just really going above and beyond. So I hope the board gets a chance to make a few comments on that later when we discuss the hiring process later on this evening. But I just wanted to make that announcement and express my appreciation for all that she has done.
Here, here.
So the other item under administration is technology updates. Generally, we are having a new server installed on Thursday. They've already began the migration work. In addition to that, we will have 5 new PCs installed, and we are updating and upgrading our email service. So no longer using free services that are available generally. We will be switching to a small fee-based service that will have our emails hosted, and we'll make things a lot more functional for staff and board members and committee members who utilize those addresses. So
We're all going to be on the same.
we'll all be on the same. We will all be at reedfieldmaine.org, and so it's been a long time coming, but we're happy to be switching over and upgrading our IT services. Excuse me.
And everyone will be doing that? No exceptions?
No exceptions. No.
Thank
no.
you.
Everybody will, and everybody has the same format.
Perfect.
Yep. Transfer station, a lot of activity there. The apparel impact clothing bin that had been scheduled for delivery in November was delayed because of storms. So the new delivery date for that is December 18th, of course, barring any winter weather. The Freon collection is complete, which means that all of those refrigerators, air conditioners and other Freon-containing units that we pile up through the course of the year have been drained of their Freon, and now are able to be moved to the demolition or metal bins for further processing. And after we have finished that, we will have basically the same clean slate we always try to have prior to the winter months to give us the most room to work at that facility. So happy to see that. We had a latch failure at the MSW compactor on, I believe it was a Saturday, and it was a significant issue. Those latches are what hold the bin to the motor that puts thousands of pounds of force on a ram and packs it into the container. So 2 of those blew off. One failed and the other one was right after it. So that was quite a big deal, even though it's a small item. We had to send one of our staff to New Hampshire to get parts while the other one was cutting through inch-thick steel to pull the bolts off in cold weather. So I really want to commend our maintenance staff for their exceptional work in getting us back up and running so very quickly after that failure. So they both did an excellent job on that. Let's see, what's next? Oh, the update for the, not the comprehensive plan, the operations manual at the transfer station. That's been a long time coming. It's got to be 20 years old, and so far out of date with not only current operating practices, but a lot of the regulations that need to be looked at and addressed as well. So that's happening. I want to thank Catherine for her work in facilitating that process. And finally, at the transfer station, I'm reviewing the use of space at that facility. We have a lot of intermingling between maintenance areas and transfer station areas, as well as a number of public versus semi-public areas. And so in conjunction with a general review of the swap shop and how that works, because the transition we recently had, I think, was a bit rough. And I want to see that be a very useful and functional part of our operation. So I'm looking to move things around so that we have that swap shop in a heated space so that it can be used year-round comfortably, and also improve access to the restroom. It's kind of been squirreled away and kept as a little bit of a secret back there, but I think that it's really important that residents and folks using that facility have access to that restroom and really promote it as a public restroom. So small things, but little things that I hope will make the experience of people using that facility better. So. Lastly, I have a couple of announcements, and first is the Last Chance Rabies Clinic, and that's this, not this, but, excuse me, Tuesday, January 15th, and that is for anybody from any town that wants to come and get their dogs vaccinated. Vaccination's critically important, and it's also required by law for dogs over a certain age, I believe. So
6 months.
6 months, thank you. Pre-registration and payment are required. Contact the town office. It's a great opportunity. It's probably one of the most inexpensive places to get that done. So if you have animals, get them vaccinated, and we can do it right here at the town office, January 15th. And finally, we have Christmas hours. The town office will be closed Monday and Tuesday, December 24th and 25th for the holiday. Typically, Monday would be a half day, but given the way it all falls, we'll be closing both days. So that is my town manager report, and I'm happy to take any questions.
Thank you, Eric. Any questions?
Somebody should mention you have to get your dog's license before the end of the year.
Yes, absolutely. That's part of it as well. And we will be able to, Kristen, that's right, register at the same time while the clinic's going on? Yep, okay. Yep.
And the deadline is the 31st, but they can do it until January 31st with a small fine?
No, February 1st is when that $25 mandated,
Mandated fee.
is
Okay, so it's
mandated.
February 1st, yeah.
Yeah.
It jumps significantly
Yes.
from one who's paid it.
Thank you. The only thing I would add is I want to make sure we get lights on, street lights on the,
Yes.
you and I have had one conversation about
We
that.
have.
I think we've mentioned it here
We did, and we
before, and it was
discussed
in the
it.
paper again this morning with Gardner also getting in on that large purchase. And I just want to make sure that we investigate that and, because there's some savings, but there may be some upfront costs, and I just want to make sure it's rolled into the budget process. We'll move on to public communication. Are there any members of the Reed Field public who would like to address the select board tonight?
Could I make some comments following or at the end of your annual review of the comprehensive plan?
Sure.
Thanks.
Yep. Okay, great. We'll move on to new business. Welcome, School Superintendent for Maranacook, RSU 38, Jay Charette, and he's going to be joining us tonight to talk about the referendum that is coming up on January 8th, 2019. If you'll go right up to the stand, and the floor is yours, Jay.
Thank you very much. Well, first off, kind of twofold. I know I'm here to talk a little bit about the bond that the school department is proposing around their facilities improvement, but I also wanted to say hello as the new superintendent. Waiting this long to get to a select board meeting is not something I wanted to have happen, but it seems like since I've come in at July 1st, it seems like it's been a whirlwind of things to do. So just a name and a face, it's nice to see all you and meet all of you, and hopefully now you know who the new superintendent is if you haven't met me already. So moving on to the bond, because I don't want to take too much of your time. I'll just give you a quick snapshot and then give you an opportunity to ask questions in case there's anything that we haven't covered well. So basically, about a little over a year, about almost 18 months ago now, the school committee decided to take a look at their facilities, all of their buildings. They contracted with Oak Point Associates to do a facility study on all of our buildings, so all 4 elementary schools, the middle school, the high school, the central office building, and the transportation building also. So all of those were looked at. And in the end of March of this year, they produced this beautiful 300-page report that's, as Tyler from Oak Point, Tyler Barter, said, it's riveting reading. But we do have this, and it is available now online. It's a 300-page document. It's in a PDF format, and it's a direct link to a site that where you can go and grab that, either download it or just read it right on that site. But basically, this report helped us take a look at all our facilities, different areas of our facilities, and we basically, they basically looked at it. Here, year one things that you probably want to pay attention to immediately, and then year two, year three, and then they move themselves out to 5-year, 10-year, 15, and 20 years down the road, looking at all of our buildings and some of the important things. So the Facilities Committee did a lot of work with Tyler Barter from Oak Point to look at some of those immediate need things, some of those critical thing needs, some of those foundational things that we needed to look at in our buildings and how that would impact our budget and stuff. So the decision was made before I got here to look at doing some of that work through a bond referendum. The initial bond, when they were first looking at everything, was almost $7.5 million. And they worked with Oak Point to kind of pare that down and kind of look at what can stay, what can go, what do we need Oak Point to help us engineer and take care of, what can we do with our own maintenance staff and our facilities management director to be able to do that. And we were able to narrow that down to about $5.8 million. And I'm just going to rattle them off very quickly, but feel free to interrupt me if you've already heard it. So Manchester, we're looking at basically a complete boiler change. It's three heating systems, and we're going to bring it down to one, basically, is what it comes down to. The total cost of that is about $1.4 million. Wayne Elementary School, we need to change out the septic system. There's already been some work that's been done around that that's already been engineered, so basically we just need the money to be able to go in and do that, and that's something that our facilities director will be able to set up and manage for us. Also replace the boiler there, and there's some accessories. So altogether, Wayne is looking at, in terms of those projects, almost $750,000. The middle school, they have a big 8,000 gallon water storage tank. The water from the well is pumped into that storage tank, and from the storage tank it goes into filters, and then it gets pressurized, and it actually from that tank goes out to the high school and the middle school. That tank is currently running at about 50% capacity because the liner on the inside is is rusting out and falling in. So obviously not the greatest situation there in terms of that tank. And that's a huge tank that the school was kind of put in there, and the school was built around it. So there is some work to be able to remove that tank and put in a new tank. About $190,000 for that particular part of the bond. The high school roof, they're looking at some structural upgrades to that to the tune of about $200,000. And then they need to replace the entire roof. It's a little over 15 years old, and they're having problems with water getting in, especially the valleys where the roofs come together. So all totaled about $2 million to work on structural upgrades and to redo the roof itself. Then we also looked at what needed to be done with pavement and asphalt around our schools, and one of the decisions that was made around that was the economy of scale, that if you can do a bunch of paving projects together, you can kind of bring the cost down versus doing one here, one there over the course of a year or a couple of years. So paving at the following schools: Wayne Elementary School, Mount Vernon Elementary School, Reedfield Elementary School, and then the high school, the north and the west sides have some work that need to be done there. That would all kind of be managed by our facilities director. The one that we need Oak Point for is basically the work that needs to be done on Millard Harrison Drive to access the Marana Cook schools. That it needs to be totally kind of brought right down to grade again, and some work done for drainage around the lake, obviously, and there's some spots that have sunk and all that kind of stuff. So altogether, again, a little over $1.3 million, actually almost $1.4 million for the paving part of it. So that's what kind of adds up to our $5.8 million bond package that we're putting together. So we're looking, a couple of questions that the most frequent questions that I'm getting asked, I should say, is have you looked at, is there anything that the state can do to help you out? So there's 2 programs from the state. One is a new construction program. You need to be not just renovating a school, but actually building something in order to qualify for this particular one. That's a little dicier because the last kind of round there was in 2010, 2011, and I'm hoping I'm remembering my numbers correctly, but there were 74 schools that applied, and of those 74, I believe it was 16 got approved for that round. And it's a competitive process, so you have to put your schools in, they come in, walk through, score things, so it's a pretty competitive process. So when they rank order you, it's 1 to 74, and you kind of see where you fall. Like I said, only 16 of those 74 efforts kind of went through. They did open it up in 2016, 2017, and again, they had 74, excuse me, I'm going to back up. I think it was 81 the last round, so I apologize, my numbers might be off a little. But I believe it was 74 applied this last round in 2016, 2017. None of those projects they've ranked ordered them, but they haven't moved them at all. Complicating that is they opened up an application process for a 9 through 16 integrated consolidated school, which basically was bringing various communities together and going into higher education. They had 7 people apply, 1 got awarded and has been moved into the planning stages of that. And so a little bit of my guess is some of that money got shifted around to that 9 through 16 application process for whatever reason. One of my recommendations coming out of this is that the next time that cycle opens up, that the Marana Cook School System, RSU 38, put in their schools just to see where we fall. I think it's worth the time and effort to put in with that. Part of what you need is an enrollment study, and we do have an enrollment study that I expect back probably in January at some point. Plus, the report from Oak Point will help us in that respect also. Even if it's several years old, it's still going to help us in terms of putting our schools in just to see where we fall on that list and what the state may think moving forward from there. The other state program that they have is the school renovation, revolving renovation fund. That particular one is, they have a cap of up to $1 million, and they usually fund it in 2-year cycles. So it opened in 2016, 17, or excuse me, 17, 18. But in 18, 19, there's no funds left, so there's no way to apply at this point. So that particular fund is one where they rank order according to priorities. Priority 1 is usually has to do with safety, hazardous materials, ADA compliance, those kinds of things. Those are priority 1 items. For example, our high school roof structural upgrades, that would be something that might fit under there. But in terms of re-roofing it, that wouldn't qualify. So it's kind of one of those tricky areas that you have to pay attention to. But with the information that we do have in the Oak Point report, that is something that I think we want to look to take advantage of also the next time that opens up. And basically what that does is it gives you a $1 million cap. And again, it's a bond, and they forgive part of that bond anywhere between 30% to 70%. They'll forgive, and then you repay the rest with no interest. So it's actually a pretty good deal if you can get in on that. Again, a frame of reference, 81 or 80, I think it was 81. I'm sorry, my numbers, I keep repeating this over and over and I get my numbers mixed up. I believe it was 81 or 84 people applied in the 17-18 school year, and of those 40 got funded. So 41 of them didn't qualify, were listed as priority 2, and the state typically only helps priority 1 they haven't helped with the priority 2, 3, 4, or 5 over the course of this program. So we are looking at those. We do know that we need to look at a long-range plan. Again, our facilities committee and our maintenance person is looking at what are these items that are here and trying to look forward as to what do we need to do to pay attention to make sure that all of our buildings stay in really as good a shape as we can keep them in, because they're not just for the students, but we realize the communities use our schools and the buildings quite a bit, and we want that to continue. That's part of one of the reasons why we're looking to do this bond. One of the other questions that we're getting is, well, why are you doing the vote in January? That is a typical question that we're getting. So part of it has to do with, we really looked at, could we do this in November at the last election? And there was just no way to meet the legal requirements. And I also felt, and several of the board members felt also, that it was really important that we not rush this, that we give people a chance to ask questions, we give people a chance to get information, and we didn't want to feel like we were trying to jam something through and not give people the information they needed to make a really good decision. The other reason is that we want to do as much of this work as possible during the summer months. So in order to do that, we'll need lead time to order for some materials and some of the supplies that we need. We need to have time to let Oak Point do some of the engineering that they're going to need to do, and lead time to order, and the other part that Oak Point made it a point to tell us was materials fluctuate quite a bit. The material cost of things fluctuate quite a bit. And he quoted anywhere from 3 to 5%. They've seen materials change in the course of a year. So in order to make use of that $5.8 million, we really want to make sure that we get good prices and we can do everything that we want to do here. We don't want to have to eliminate things because costs have gone up dramatically. So that's why we're looking at a January vote. With that January vote, we would look for a bond issue from the Maine Municipal Bond Bank in the fall. We would be able to do the work under a bond anticipation note. So we would be able to do that. And the advantage of that is in our first year, tax-wise, we'd only make one interest payment, but the next year, in year 2, we would make our first principal payment and then 2 interest payments at that point. And at the public hearings, we did have some tax documents, some best guess tax documents that we shared. They are on our website now. Oh, right here. I got it. They are here right now, and it just kind of it's a 2-page document, but it lets you kind of see what our best guess at taxes, how it might impact taxes along the way. And Bridget Williams knows this way better than I do, but she did a really good job, I think, kind of giving us a middle ground. We didn't want to lowball it, but we didn't want to highball it either, so we were trying to shoot for that middle ground, knowing that a lot of these numbers can change. So when you do look at that tax document, please know that we're using 18-19 numbers, and every year those numbers change a little bit. They're not going to jump wildly, but they do change a little bit, so things can go up or down a little bit from the best guess, estimates that are there at this point. Again, our goal is to be as transparent as possible, answer any questions that are out there around this. All of the documents we have are public. We do have them posted on our website. We can get people copies if they need them, and that's one of the reasons why I'm here tonight talking to you guys, is just to give you guys a chance, because I know you guys also have to answer to taxpayers, and they may have questions that they're asking you. So I wanted to get out here tonight and just let you know that we're totally open, and anything we can do to help this process along would be fantastic. We know that it is an impact on the town, so we want to make sure that you guys have a chance to ask questions as well and get the information you need. I did bring, Gary Carr is our school board chair. I shouldn't say I brought him, he came. He's our school board chair. He's from Wayne. And then Alex Wright also was able to join us tonight. He's a representative from Mount Vernon. So if you have questions, they are more than willing to answer any questions as well. So with that, I'm trying to watch your time. I know you guys have a busy
You're fine.
agenda. Do you guys have any questions that I can answer, or any of us can answer while we're here?
Well, I have 4, but I'll defer to anyone else who wants to start.
Go ahead, start.
You looked like you had a
You're
question,
batting
Dennis.
lead off. No, ma'am, go right ahead.
Okay, so I'm Catherine Woodson. Nice to meet you. Thank you very much. It was a nice presentation. I appreciate some board members coming along also. I'm not going to play my hand right up front, but I'm asking my questions from an information gathering standpoint, not from a trying to make waves standpoint, so you already know probably where I'm going. I'm a school teacher of 31 years, so I understand all of this that you've been talking about very much. So I can't remember where I read this, if it was in an email that came from you or if it was in the community advertiser, but you also mentioned replacing the roof. So there's some structural work that was like $190,000, and then there's replacing the roof.
Yes.
Does that mean just I assume it's an asphalt tile roof from what I remember seeing of the picture. Does that include new sheathing, or is it just the outer layer?
There is a possibility that there are some spots where the sheeting would probably have to be replaced. That's one of the things that Oak Point told us is, once you rip it off, you kind of have a better idea of,
Right.
what's underneath. They did make it a point to say that there's no ice and water shield on that building anywhere. When they last did it, it's not there for whatever reason. I don't know if it's because of, I don't know. I wasn't here, I'm not gonna try to second guess
So will the
that.
estimate include doing that when they pull off the shingles?
Yes,
Thank
that
goodness.
includes, yes, one of the things, Oak Point would be helping us with that. So they build in contingency funds into the cost of a project for that very reason. And the roofing that they're looking at, they're telling us would have a 40 to 50-year life cycle versus asphalt. The asphalt that's on there now is a 15 to 20 years. So they're saying with the new technology and the new asphalt, or new roofing that they have, that it would be a 40 to 50-year lifespan for that roof, which I hope it is.
Because that means none of us will be still here doing
right.
this when the roof needs to be replaced again,
That's
except
right.
maybe Dennis, because
Dennis
he's
might
still
be
our
here.
newbie.
I remember
Just had
that
to
roof.
pick on him. Okay, and so then the hard one is, I don't remember how many years ago, 2, 3, 4 years, we talked about consolidation in the district.
Yes.
And I don't know if it went out to vote, I can't remember how that went, but we didn't end up doing that. We have really low enrollment in Wayne
Yep.
with a building, and I know that the town of Wayne rents part of that building.
Yes.
To help offset some of the cost. But can you just tell us what the conversation was around deciding to go this route of repairing all the buildings in regards to the consolidation
Yeah.
in terms of use of the building and enrollment numbers, and if there's I know you're having an enrollment study come in soon, but is enrollment currently going up in the district?
It's kind of plateaued. From what I understand, I've been here, almost 6 months now, so I'll be
Right.
very honest in saying that. Based on what I've seen, it seems like it's kind of plateaued for most schools. Actually, the shifts in the elementary school, Manchester's actually dropped a little bit, and Reedfield has actually risen a little bit in the last couple of years. So that's an interesting shift that we're trying to pay attention to also. As far as the outlying schools, or the other outlying schools, Mount Vernon, Wayne, it seems like they've pretty much plateaued. They've stayed fairly even. No dramatic changes there over the last 5, 6 years. One of the things I think that's really important is getting our name on that new construction list, because part of that process is you put all of your schools in, like in this case we'd be discussing elementary schools, put all your elementary schools in, they're gonna rank order those elementary schools, and they like, for example, Wayne may come in at first, but Reedfield may come in at number 14, and then Manchester 32 or whatever. But what they've been known to do is to kind of roll those things together based on the needs, based on where we're going. The state has obviously signaled with their new construction that they've approved that they're looking for consolidation of schools. They're not going to fund building or doing mass renovations to small little schools. So that's something we have to pay attention to moving forward. We need to start having conversations about that. So that's why we're doing this. But we also know that's probably 8-10 years out. It's not something that's going to happen tomorrow or even a couple of years. So that's why we want to take care of these schools. We really look at what we're doing as those foundational pieces to make sure the buildings stay solid. There's still other things, to be very honest, there's still other things that need to happen in those, but we're also building a plan going forward to be able to address those things and keep those schools in as good a shape as we can, regardless of what community they're in.
So that was my next and almost last question. So this is the $5-point-something million.
Yep.
And then what are you looking, according to Oak Point, I don't mean
Yeah.
you personally.
Yeah.
What is the future looking out holding for us? Is it another $5 million in 5 years? Is it another $5 million in 2 years? Is it $25 million?
Honestly, we've had,
Let me
yeah,
answer
go ahead,
that
Gary.
If you wouldn't mind going to the mic, that would be great. Thank you.
So, the reason why I said I didn't answer that question, since Jay was not involved in the original. So let's go back to the question of consolidation. That's not even on the books at this point, because to get to consolidation, you have to have the attendance, how many attend in each school. Manchester is landlocked. Mount Vernon is at capacity. Wayne has some capacity. So that's how that works out. Bruce came to our meeting the other day. So when Oak Point did their thing, we have 15 pages, both sides, of all the things that are bad with our schools.
Okay, buildings,
Buildings. Right, the building part of it.
great.
And so out of those 15, we only picked 6 items, which are the high-cost items. And out of that high-cost items was the boilers, because Manchester's running on borrowed time, so is Wayne. They've both been patched to the end. The septic system in Wayne even has trees in it. And it's the old style. Instead of having pipes and soil and everything else, no, it's actual 2 pieces of wood like this, and it runs down to the center. So, but that engineering cost on that and the boiler has already been calculated, and we have the specs. So that's why our maintenance person is doing that. That's why he's picking up a lot of these items to do on his own. So the big item that is Manchester with the boiler, with the 3 different systems, which requires every classroom to be touched. Because there is a 20-degree difference between the classrooms. Some are cold, some are almost run close to 80 degrees out there. And so that needs to be addressed immediately. These are immediate options. Now, once we get the attendance, then we need to sit down as communities and start to look at realistic. If we had everybody under one roof, the cost does go down, but towns lose their identity.
Right.
So that's a question as to, everybody's going to come in with opinions, and we're going to have a public vote on that to even go forward. But the other part of it is, how do we want to teach, and what do we want to teach in our schools? Do we need to go back to the crafts and have those things done or not? The other thing is, on this bond, so if I look at Reedfield in Mr. Bruce, I believe, right?
Yes,
Who has a copy of this form, I believe you got a copy.
from the hearing the other night.
Yeah, if you could share that with them sometime, it's like $12 a month if you had a $150,000 home, is what we're talking this bond. and we limit it to 15 years, because in 15 years, you're gonna be faced with another bond.
Right.
And we were asked, so we asked Oak Point on the top of their head, if they had 650 students to build just on the top of their head. Nothing is close, you know, but it's almost like 23.8 million for a new centralized operation. That's something that we need to think of, but it's not something that we should bring to the public at this time, nor should we.
Right.
I mean, when we have, you increased 19, we increased 5 people in Wayne. And I think it was 8 students out at Manchester was reduction, and Mount Vernon picked up 1 or 2, I believe. So that gives you an idea of what the increase was in population this year.
And I certainly thank you. That was really good information, just what I was looking for. And
Yeah, because, I mean, when you look at I looked at the bond this way, because I used to work on Wall Street. At the end of this bond, the life of these things, I'm hoping carries on a little bit, but it gives you a leeway that you know you got a decision. Yeah, I don't want to see a bond on top of a bond.
Right.
And that's what we tried to avoid. And these other items, like the locks, the lighting, that go to LEDs and things like that, Efficiency Main should be able to pick that. The locks on all the doors need to be changed because of the new, I don't know how to put it correctly.
New safety standards.
Yeah, all right. Say what I want to say. I mean, to protect our children. The fire alarms have to be brought lower is the new standard. So those are all being addressed right now. And we're going to pick them off as fast as we can so
But we're
that the
doing
public.
We're doing that out of current funds.
Out of
and-
current
and
funds.
Annually out of
and
funds.
Right. And so this whole thing was set up as 1, 2, 3, and 5, 10, 15, and 20. So we tried to stay on this side the first 3 years. What are the biggest items and what is failing so bad right now? Manchester's failing bad because the teachers are hot. It was they're freezing in the other ones.
Right.
These are major items that I don't see how we can go any other way to get it resolved. In industry, we would have done it. But,
Oh, absolutely.
and the legal system, I've learned the legal system in the school system is nothing like what we have in industry. This
Right.
goes on and on. Drumston has to look at contracts, and even though we can say yes or no, they have to say yes or no. So,
Right.
did that help you some?
That helps terrifically, and just on the consolidation question, the reason I was asking.
Yeah?
Twofold, I'll tell you now that you've already answered. One is, I often ask questions that I think I already know the answer to, but I'd like them to be public, and I'd
Yeah.
like the person who's presenting the situation to give their viewpoint, so it's not me coming across as what Catherine thinks. And I think it's really important. We have a lot of people who I know listen to our broadcasts who probably don't also go to school meetings. So this gives them an opportunity to
Right.
hear that, yes, people are still thinking about these things, and this is where we're at on them.
Yeah, we constantly have to look at that item, consolidation, whether it happens. I think the state's going to force you into that. Once you come to that 15-year point, I just have the feeling the state is not going to fund 4 schools.
Well, and who knows what population will do?
Right, so I mean,
It could
the whole thing
increase,
could
and then you won't
change.
need that.
So
So-
Jay has made arrangements with to get this thing brought out and the attendance. So that'll be like a 5-year project that we're going to be looking at constantly. So within 5 years, we're going to have to all sit down together, all towns, all people, and say, wait a minute, do we need the teachers moving from Mount Vernon all the way over to Wayne, Wayne back to, or over to Reedfield? And if we have to move kids because of something failing, That's another cost.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, and it's very important to towns to keep their local schools.
Right,
It was hard for us to give our school up to the district.
Right.
That was a tough signature we all made, but we did that.
yeah,
And so they're very much community centers, and we appreciate
Right.
that. But we have to recognize that there's a cost to that.
right.
So when people want to say, well, why do we have to pay all this money? Well, here's part of the reason. If you want to
But-
keep your local center, you have to be willing to pay for it, which is
Right.
hard. But
It's very, very hard to make that decision. But it has to be made, you know, very conscious and slow. You can't work fast with government.
Right, right.
But
Well, thank you
I
very
hope that
much.
helped you so much.
Are there
Very
other
much.
questions or thoughts?
Eric, not Eric, Bruce, he mentioned that you have the amount. Do either you or Eric know what the, it looks like the projected mill impact is for Reed Field?
I don't, but
It's
well, it depends on the,
No, I haven't,
Yeah.
I have not.
because we also need to calculate the
And I
interest.
I have that information, and I'll be happy to give this to you. It's also available online.
There was also another
Basically-
paper that was passed out at that meeting, and that had to do with what have we done in the past to bring these schools up, and there was another handout on that also.
Great.
So there is a package online, essentially.
So what we
I
also
can talk
did,
in gross numbers.
Yeah.
The Reed Field impact for 2019 and 2020 is only $8,500 approximately, because of the timing of the bond.
Right.
So the real hit comes in
On the second year.
2021, which is about $114,000, and then it declines.
it declines every year after
So
that.
for Reed
Yeah.
Field, that's about a $500,000-ish.
I wouldn't want to speculate, and also too.
We have a lot of property also
Yeah.
coming online, too.
We do.
As you mentioned, the
help defray.
population's up a little bit in town. Well, that's because we've become an attractive town, and part of that is due to attractive schools.
Right.
So
Right.
it's very hard to work these numbers through, but obviously they will. And I guess one thing I would like to share with the public tonight that may watch this later or may be watching it now is I did attend the hearing that was at Marana Cook, and I was fairly lonely, I must say. There were not a lot of Reed Field residents there. Will there be another opportunity for people to come to a board meeting before the vote to ask questions, either during a public comment session or something that is devised to wrap this up?
We do have one more, we have a meeting the 20th, 19th.
19.
Of December.
We have a school board meeting right here in Reed Field the 19th, so certainly we welcome any questions at that time. And then our next one after that, I believe, is January 2. And then the referendum vote is scheduled for January 8th, so. there are
So-
a couple of opportunities.
Great, Jay. And I would add to that, again, for Reed Field residents, you have representation on the boards. Those individuals are online. Thank you for coming tonight. But if you want to talk to your Reed Field representative and get numbers or ask specific questions, please do that. I'm always very careful to say that about $4.50 of the mill of what you pay per thousand is what this town controls. And the school district
Is
is a
the big
taxing
portion.
authority, and the county is a taxing authority. And so we all have our responsibilities, and I really appreciate you coming here and explaining this for us.
Yeah.
And I do, ask residents to please be engaged.
Bruce, can I ask one question?
Please do.
From a financial perspective, I'm wondering, I guess this is probably for Jay, and thank you for coming.
You're very welcome.
It's nice to finally see you and meet you. It's a 15-year bond, 5.8 million principal. What is the estimated interest rate, and what are the estimated interest for the overall expenditure?
That is a great question that I don't have that information with me.
Okay.
But I can definitely get that for you, Eric. I can have that shot right over to your office if that'll help you for sure. I'm not even gonna try to hazard a
great.
guess because I don't want to misspeak on behalf, but I can definitely get you what the interest rates look like right now from the main municipal bond
Yeah, I
banks.
mean, I'm thinking it's probably somewhere around 3%.
Yes,
I'm not,
yeah,
I'm not
yeah.
sure though.
That's
Yeah.
what,
Yeah.
that's what they based it on at this moment,
Okay, yeah.
because we don't know what's gonna happen to the capital markets.
Yeah,
Right.
next fall, it could be a half point difference, it could be
Right.
more, yeah.
Right,
Exactly.
and the reason for the municipal bond versus going out to the public banks is that because of the size, banks are not really enticed to use it.
We use the bond bank and they're exceptional, so you'll have a great experience.
Yes, yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Okay, well, any other questions?
Just, I thank you guys very much for letting me come and present. And again, any questions, anytime, reach out to my office, online, it doesn't matter. I will, if I don't know the answers, I will find somebody who does have the answers for you. So thank you guys very, very much.
So if whoever comes to those public meetings that we have, me and the chair, if the person puts down their name and that they want to talk about the bond, you'll go first before anything else.
Thank you,
Okay.
How's that?
thank you. Thank you for coming.
Thank you all so much, and especially for all my long questions. And we know that you're probably terribly riveted by the local government here in Reedfield, but we understand if you need to leave and take care of other business.
So one other thing is that we sent out we're sending out on December 10th, information to all homes.
Yes.
And then we're going to do it again on January 7th. All homes will get hit again, so that hopefully we can stir the people coming.
Well, we'll certainly post it on our website, right, Eric, that we're having a
Absolutely.
send out our
absolutely.
alerts.
Yep.
Thank you.
Perfect.
How about a
Thanks so much.
60-second stretch?
I
okay?
want that.
Okay, we're back in session,
Self-gambling.
and we're conducting just sort of a cursory but annual review of the comprehensive plan goals, just to see if there's anything that we want to in particular mention or check on, and so on and so forth. I know you're here for that, David. Did you want to listen to the conversation, or did you want to just speak to begin with?
I've never attended an
Okay.
annual review of the comprehensive plan, so I
It's very informal. And the reason for that is it's kind of an ongoing, rolling, if you will, plan, and there will come points in time where we will decide to really dig into it, and as a community, involve a much bigger cross-section of individuals and committees and get broader input. And I think Eric and I have had actually a couple discussions on that, and I think at some point, fairly soon, when I say fairly soon, I'm talking in government terms, within a 2 or 3 year period, I do think we do want to do a major visit at our goals. And it may not actually end up being through necessarily a comprehensive planning process, but there are other community planning or community goal-setting vehicles that you can use that would feed into what your comprehensive plan would be. But with that said, I did highlight a few things that I wanted to just check in on and talk about. There is activity on the comprehensive plan. You will see there's some things that are being done in fiscal 18 and 19. Some of them are very, very simple. For example, the Heritage Days is in here. I can't remember which item it is, but it's an item later on. But I did also notice that under long-term is work with the school board to undertake long-term school facilities planning.
Hey.
So how appropriate is that? So I'm going to just stop and take some input from board members if they would like to. And if not, then I'll just lead us through here on the points that at least I've highlighted.
I have a clerical question, I guess it is. After the years, there are parentheses with letters. I'm betting that ED is for Eric Dyer.
Yes, and the reason it's ED and not just an E is because when you do an E in parentheses like that, it turns it to euros. The euro symbol, I could not figure out how to make it stop doing that. So that's, it's a little story there.
Oh,
Okay,
that's
and so K is for,
For Manny.
Catherine, the last time that you went through and looked at this,
oh my gosh. That's just a little frightening. But
I
since
think it was about
that's,
2 years ago, but
since
yeah.
that's on here, I think we ought to put a note of what those mean, so that
Sure.
anyone else who's reading this would know. My guess is I was probably select board chair at the time we did that, so
Probably.
maybe not in 2013, but
You raised your hand a lot.
yeah, probably that, yeah. I never talk.
Are we just, I mean, like, what, are we just entertaining information? I mean, because when I look at the midterm, even though it says the goal number 1 is seek partnerships with Manchester and other municipalities, which it's sort of strange that like Manchester and other places. But I think
As
about
opposed
the-
to Fayette and Wayne.
Right,
Yeah, yeah.
Because it's closer to Augusta for housing, regional housing projects.
Sure.
That's how they came out.
But one of the things that, you know, in terms of other projects that have benefited, the Maranacook Dam, does that fall under, you know, this in terms of working together? That
For the
seems
medium
like
term, absolutely, yeah.
something that we do well here.
Well, and some of these were they were suggestions made in the plan to guide. And there were goals for the select board and for various committees, and I think, were there goals in the comp plan for the town manager? I can't remember, but, yes, okay. And so we're just looking at the select board ones, but at some point, we had never really looked at these, and so that's why we made up a chart of when did we do it last, and kind of, when did we finish it? So if something was finished, we didn't really need to keep going with it. And I think the last time we did this, a year or two ago, Eric added the columns of who was going to be the primary point person on this, because you haven't looked at this before, right, Dennis?
No, this is the
Okay.
first time I've ever seen
And so that's what
this.
that check with is over there, that, okay, it might be a select board goal, but that one that you were talking about, who would the person be who's really got the information on it? And that would be Eric and Gary. So you probably wouldn't want to be asking Robin about that, whose name we'll have to change shortly, because she wouldn't really have the information. So that's how it was laid out.
So were there some specific things you wanted to talk about, or anybody else?
The finance open space activization and improvements through impact fees and other sources are recommended in the open space plan. It was voted down at the town meeting in 2011.
Apparently.
There was an actual
I don't actually
ordinance
recall it, but
proposed that for every new property that was sold to be developed, there would be an actual dollar amount that would be paid to the town for a fund
I see.
to do open space. And as I recall, the conversation in the public about that was that we had a trails committee, we had a conservation committee, and it seemed like that was something that was going to provide that service, and we didn't really need to be taking money and saving it. And then now hindsight shows that, wow, those two committees have really done phenomenal things.
Yeah.
So maybe that was the right decision.
So should we revise that goal then? It was voted down and we've got these committees that are doing a great job. Do we,
Well, I think it's done.
so it shouldn't,
Yeah, I mean, this
I
is
don't-
sort of.
I don't think we have to revisit
This
it,
is like
no.
a status,
Yeah.
check-in, if you will. And I think, you know, for example, with that item, it came to some finality, but also there was some further realization through these other committees that that goal could be accomplished. So if I was explaining to a resident, that would probably be the way I would do that.
So it might be worth an annotation, is maybe what I'm hearing, that
Yeah,
explains
something-
where it has gone
Right.
now. So now, in hindsight, we've seen that we have developed a lot more open space through this work, so.
because it looks like we voted it down and we didn't do anything, is what it looks
I
like.
hear you.
But we've done a lot just through the committees.
It's a good point.
So would you like, are we making a suggestion that some group of us, or maybe have the town manager go through and annotate this?
Yeah, just put a little note there.
Sure, no, I think that's a good suggestion, and, you know, what I had done with preparing this was to just go through and just do a very cursory look at some of
Yeah.
these things. And, I mean, obviously, some of this stuff, you know, I don't even have the full backstory on,
Right.
you know, what happened in 2011 or why, but again, this is a 2008 document with a 2008 vision, and much of it's still very, very relevant in our community, but some of it has changed, and some of it's changed, significantly. But there are a lot of things that, might have an accomplished date that are still ongoing. A lot of things that, that might not ever appear to be something that we're going to be addressing, but, definitively, but that we're taking steps toward every day. So it's a little bit hard with something like this to put it into a concrete, status update. I think part of what I like about this type of review is just thinking about these things and thinking about where we are and how it's going, and not necessarily quantifying everything, but just thinking about it and how it fits in with our community vision and our day-to-day operations and our budgets and things like that. So for me, this is one of the best things I could possibly look at before the budget process, because it helps get into my head a lot of the things that are important to this community. And these were set as goals because at one point they were very important. So, yeah.
I think if you look at midterm item 4, which is on page 14 in the packet, there's a good annotation there. It was reviewed over 3 years, they're specified. It was reviewed, all of them each year in 2 years, as needed currently. So that's, I think, a very good annotation that lets people know that we continue to look at this. That's an ordinance revision one. If you look at number 2 on midterm, provide land or other incentives as applicable for the construction or rehabilitation of affordable housing. Well, we don't have affordable housing in Reedfield. We've never had a project designated as affordable housing project. But if someone were to come to us and say, we'd like to develop something, and we were to go and look, do we grant a permit for this? How much do we seriously consider this? Well, here it is, it's in our plan. And so this is something that we said, if this came about, we should take advantage of it.
So, but that brings up a pretty important thing, and that is a goal for this, I'm looking at 1 and 2 actually kind of
Okay.
combined, if
Yeah.
you will, is our goal to provide the means to come into the town to perhaps accomplish this, or is the goal to aggressively pursue it? And so that's the nuance there.
Well, and I think 1 says seek partnerships, so that's aggressive, and 2 says provide incentives, which means, more to me, it means if someone is asking, could there be a TIF, a tax increment fund, or something to that nature. But I think you'd first have to have somebody saying, we need affordable housing in Reedfield, or I want to develop affordable housing in Reedfield. And I know we talked about that over the last couple of years with the tax rebate thing we just passed in our last town meeting for
Which
seniors.
is in itself an incentive and a way to help make housing more affordable. It's a
Right.
different approach, but it can meet the same end at some level.
Well, and
so.
it's not truly affordable housing in this sense, but we have the Balsam House here in Reedfield, which is providing residential care for people who can't live at home in an assisted living sense, and I think they've expanded or are expanding. And so that's one method of doing this. So, I mean, those are the kinds of things that we're looking at with this plan, and just being mindful of what's there, and looking to either have it as something that we've completed or something that we've reviewed, talked about, and said, well, nothing's really on the burner, or, hey, we're doing this and it kind of relates, so let's make a notation of that.
Other pieces of input? And I in particular, that those first couple of items on housing, affordable housing, and I'm aware of the Lindenbrook project because I had a parent just move in there in Manchester. And that began with that church that's across the street from the town office approaching, and I'm not exactly sure if they donated the land or whatever, but then it developed into a project. And it is a very affordable housing, and it's great to have a parent there because, she's accessible to me and close by, and it's affordable and so on and so forth. But I'd really like to see Reed Field do whatever it can to encourage that kind of housing. I don't think we want huge housing development spreads, but these are two buildings that have 6 units each in them, 8 units each in them. So
Well, you
that's-
certainly have
It
this-
fits in the landscape and
Yeah.
and so forth.
And you certainly have the support here in the plan for that to happen. And I think that's part of, this is sort of a guiding document, as much as it's a, please be aware of these things and do them. It's also a, this is what people said we wanted, because the comp plan was developed at a time when the state mandated that we have comprehensive plans, which they no longer do,
But they may again.
but they may again. But there was a lot of input put into this from, I'm going to say, hundreds of different individuals over a period of several years.
Well, and so again, coming back to the 2 items I'm talking about, is there a potential for outreach that we should be engaging in? And that's, it's good to have something that's there, but should we be informing more broadly, or even targeting, if you will, people that we want to talk to about perhaps some potential in that area? Just a thought. I'm not
Yeah.
But
proposing
that
anything.
could become a select board goal that, we want to focus on over the next 2 years.
Right.
It could become a town manager goal that we want him to focus on with other municipalities. It could become both.
Yeah.
I think at the very least, it's something we need to look at more closely, because that caught my attention too. The white space, this is one of the very few areas, housing, where we have not accomplished nor really made any significant progress toward what is one of the goals in this plan. Almost everything else has had significant work done or is ongoing. But that housing piece is definitely a notable exception, a notable white space. And but it's also a very tricky one, because, every week we have somebody new coming into the office wanting to do an addition or build a new home. I can't think of the last time we had a duplex come in, even a duplex, let alone something that's more than that. And we do have a lot of kind of accessory type housing. We've got even people sneaking stuff in, little apartments here and there. So that's a sign that maybe that is the type of preferred housing stock, having in-law apartments, things like that. But I think that what we're seeing is probably a need to review and understand that issue more. And that's might be one reason why we haven't grappled with it, is because we don't have all the information yet. So I think the first thing that we could do and should do is start gathering information on, our housing, and talk to some realtors and, find out if this is.
And I did attend an AARP forum where they talked about housing in more rural areas.
Yeah.
And one of the approaches is to, through your code enforcement, to make sure that you're permit friendly on elder apartments and so forth. And I think at the time, I may have even talked with you about it, it looked like we were in a pretty good place with that. But it can always get some review and update.
Yeah, absolutely.
I'd be happy, in reading through this, I'd be happy to sit down with you, Eric, sometime at your choosing, and just help you annotate where we're at. One I just read was to have job descriptions for boards and committees. Well, that's something that's happened over the last 2 years, I believe, and we don't have any annotation on that.
Nope.
So there's some updating we could do to this easily.
Well, and I even have a little bit of a disagreement with that. I think for boards and committees, instead of written job descriptions, you really want to be much more focused on missions and let board members,
Which is what that's what I
Yeah.
meant we did, but so we would want
But
to
I
write
think-
in there
yeah.
that we developed a mission and a protocol for, like having
Right.
minutes come in after meetings so that they're public and transparent. and-
Right.
And that notebook exists somewhere that lists all the committees and who's on them.
Well, if you move down to number 5 on the ongoing, that ad hoc committee on committees, the committee on committees, if you remember.
Right, yeah.
Which existed for about a year, did incredible work. And so that binder and all of that information is there.
Right.
To a
And so
great
maybe on
extent.
number 4, we just want to, I mean, we could annotate this and then come back and discuss it after we all read it and think about it and say, you know, the select board as of 2018 feels it's not correct to have written job descriptions, but to just have the guiding documents.
Well, the other thing I think,
So whatever.
some of our select board goals, of which there are 7, do align with some of these, but I think, you know, we've been doing this kind of mid-year. We probably ought to do this more in conjunction with our select board retreat.
Yeah.
Because we should be pulling perhaps some of our goals out of this, and obviously, you can't do everything, but.
Or see that they align,
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
and where they align, so it can be noted that we're doing this.
yeah.
Or where you take exception to them.
Right.
Yep.
And times change.
Yep.
This document is what, 11 years plus old now, so.
Yeah.
Were there other particular items that anybody wanted to talk about? Well, I would look forward to getting some further annotation, if you would like to do that with Eric, and then have another discussion for another 15 minutes or so at a future board meeting, and then maybe even use that document as well at a select board retreat, if I'm so lucky to continue participating in those.
Well, and Eric, you could probably get that out to the select board to review after you and I go over it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yep.
I can't, but you could.
I mean, some of these, like number 16, to put Heritage Days on an annual basis, I mean, that's a very simple one, but
Something we already got in the works.
we have it in the
Yeah,
works.
that, we already looked at that, yeah. We want
Yeah.
to.
Well, because it didn't used to be, right? Town
It
meeting
was
approved
voted in
every other year.
originally, and then it was changed.
David, did you want to comment on this and have some input?
Sure, when you concluded your
Yeah, I'm not sure if we're entirely concluded, because I've asked, and I think we're at a point where if you gave us some further thoughts, maybe we would even discuss those, who knows?
Oh, that'd be great.
Maybe we won't.
So I'm David Trinnell, live on Old Kensal Road, and several months ago, I read the comprehensive plan for the first time. And I'm embarrassed to say that I supported the adoption of it in 1993, and what was the other one, 2009? But never really read them, or I don't remember what I read if I skimmed it. So there were probably about 4 things that jumped out at me in the course of reading it, and reflecting back over the decades back to 1990 when my family and I moved to Reedfield. And so my comments are really rhetorical in a sense, really reflective of many select board meetings that I kind of popped in and out of, and town meetings, that kind of thing. And there are really four ideas or strategies that I think are so important. And the first one is a vision, a clear and compelling vision. And I say that because I think it's missing from this comprehensive plan. This comprehensive plan is just an elegant document when it comes to missions and goals and implementation strategies, and even a sense of timing, which is so important to keep that sense of urgency to get things done. But there's no clear vision, and after I started reading the plan, I Googled, strategic plans and that kind of thing to review that it's the strategic plan for a high-performance organization really starts with a vision statement. And that's so important because that has to be articulated or paraphrased in a way that's memorable for everybody in the town. And so that's one concept, and I think it's embedded in phrases throughout the comprehensive plan. And I think I would urge this board to have someone go in and lift those out and kind of construct what is the vision statement, in other words, the sense of direction for this town, rather than hold off for some visioning workshop or sessions that might be deemed important next year. I think it's such a beautiful document, it's got those things in it now. The second thing that struck me that is so important is this concept that's sprinkled throughout the plan several times about the preservation and enhancement of all the historic, archaeological, and cultural assets of the town. And as I was listening to your discussion here tonight about housing, I noted that, but I didn't bring it here as a topic to really discuss with you. But I think the questions you asked about what approach you should be taking as a board or as individuals designated to be point person is really instructive to not only the housing, where a school board or a select board can get into a mode of kind of sitting by and waiting for the market to bring forward a affordable housing person. I think the same opportunity for the select board exists around the notion of preservation and enhancement of historic assets. If you read the plan, you see in some places it goes kind of soft on this relationship between the town committees and boards leadership and role with the Historical Society. And it leaves it open to a lack of rigor, a lack of robustness, a lack of constructive partnership with the Historical Society, for example. And I understand they're doing a street museum now, and they're having to scrounge to get $16,000. Well, the street museum and the plaques on these old buildings is not my notion of a robust preservation and enhancement of the 100-year-old properties in Reedfield. And certainly, I think we're at risk if select boards, as they have for decades, kind of sit back and don't initiate, don't facilitate, don't cause to happen these really robust preservations and enhancements. The third point is on school, and I'm glad it was mentioned here tonight about the fact that the plan does emphasize the importance of a relationship, a working relationship between schools and town leadership. And again, it's so, there's such a high degree of risk that the committees and the commissions and the boards will be siloed from each other. I ran across on the website today the Parks Commission and the write-up on it of the purpose for it and the need for something like this because of the overlapping responsibilities and opportunities for leadership, I think is a good reminder for every board and every commission and every committee to not slip into that comfortable silo. And so I think with the school board, not only the planning around the aging out of the bonds and that kind of thing and the invitation for the superintendent to come and speak, but I would ask you to think about a joint meeting sometime just to develop those stronger working relationships and collegiality. Because, you know, maybe we're the first village in Maine that provides free internet for everyone in the township. and there's, internet usage and cloud-based services is just one little example of how we're at high risk of everybody operating in their own silo. And the fourth and final point that I'd like to share with you, that was so striking, is that, and it relates back to vision, is that we don't and we haven't, as a town for decades, really focused on the vision type direction of assuring that Reed Field is attractive and attracting. Now, Eric tells me that there's been a boom in housing, and that is wonderful. But there's a gig economy out there now, and there are so many entrepreneurs who have so many options for where to move their family, start their cottage business. And how are we going to distinguish ourselves? Well, so coming back in a summary, I think it's a vision statement and a motto that is compelling and memorable and attractive and attracting to these folks that are out there looking for a place to move to. And I think it's a robust preservation and enhancement of our many historic assets in a way that really distinguishes us, not just from the Mount Vernons and the Manchesters, but all the villages in Maine and even New England. And certainly with the schools, my personal sense is that the school system, based on test results and anecdotal evidence coming out just kind of through the grapevine, is not at the level of excellence compared to other schools in the state that it was back in the 90s when my family chose to move here, in large part because of the schools. Now, I may be wrong, but the other thing that's probably coloring my impression of our schools' level of excellence today is that they've taken a heck of a beating in the last decade around property tax costs and things like that. Just a couple other things to share with you to get you thinking. One of my favorite sayings in business management is what gets measured gets done. And in thinking about coming here tonight, I was curious, because for 30 years I've never paid attention, about how this board and the other boards and commissions and committees use management tools and work plan and process management tools to seamlessly connect from the so well thought out, well crafted goals in the comprehensive plan to routine and regular review of the responsibilities, both who's going to do it and by when and how and what's the indicator of success, and into the agendas and into the minutes, because otherwise you get lost without that kind of tool. And before I forget about it, one other thing that was so striking in reading the agenda tonight, you're doing an annual review of the comprehensive plan. If you Google, do town governments need a strategic plan? It's, absolutely. And so my sense from my career is that at a minimum, you have major quarterly reviews and you give significant time to a review of those strategic plan elements that, again, they're so well crafted in there. A couple of decades ago, we had a principal at the Reed Field Elementary School who said, how do you know when your organization, your team, is so great, great as you think you are? He said it's when you're having to turn people away who want to come and see how you do it. how you do the things that make you so attractive. And I think that's a good standard for everybody in town to keep in mind. And lastly, I will come back because there are some other things I want to talk to you about around the trails. I would urge you to take set an even higher bar for the wonderful trails that we have in Reedfield. Gary Kelty, I don't know, Gary Kelty shared with you the Northern Kingdom Vermont trails. So why not set the bar at, Reedfield has the best set of village trails in the state of Maine. And so again, I'd urge you to make sure you got those bars and the terms you're using to focus on excellence. And one last thing that should really scare you. It talks around preservation and enhancement of some of the wonderful historic assets we have. I've talked to several people who've been here a number of decades about that beautiful house that the Durnbosses have restored on Main Street. I assume most of you know that big old house with the wrought iron, that the black cat up at, maybe you know it by the black cat they have up at
They call it the
Halloween.
Iron Fence House.
Yeah, the iron fence house. But think about this for a minute. That house was about to fall in itself and become one of Reedfield Fire Department's controlled burns. Because the select boards and other town leaders over the decades were not stepping out of their silo and managing that terrible risk that the comprehensive plan has defined. But for the Durnbosses flying to the Carolinas and finally convincing that owner to sell, we'd be without that property. And I tell you that because it's so scary and because I can think of a half a dozen other properties around here where I sense that over the decades, town leaders have thought, well, it's private property, period, end of story, or this or that. And I would urge you to be much more rigorous, much more robust in your outreach, in your creativity around realizing these visions. And so I'll leave you one thing. Coming out of the vision statement, it should be a motto. I think we need a motto. Unfortunately, Wiscasset has already taken prettiest village in Maine. So we can't have that, right? But I'm thinking and I'm urging you to put some effort into this and pluck out those vision statement pieces that are already in the plan and come up with something like one of the nicest villages in New England. Something like that. I mean, who wouldn't, looking about for a new home, wouldn't be struck by that? One of the nicest villages, not just in Maine, but in New England. So I'd welcome your questions or your concerns, but I just wanted to come tonight and share those reflections with you.
No, Ed, thank you very much. I'm glad we had you wrap up, if you will, with some reflections, and I'm sure as we move ahead, that input is vital for us to hear. So
Good.
I'm appreciative of it.
I would urge you to be bolder in those.
I heard that message.
I appreciate the urgency.
Yeah.
Don't use the word, English teacher told me, don't use the word strive.
Okay.
Okay,
Yeah.
so Dennis, some affirmation there from David. We need to have a motto. I remember
agree.
your first year
I agree.
here,
I
you
agree.
wanted us to have a motto.
Yeah.
We didn't do
Reedfield
it.
Outdoors. I
You
like
know,
that.
Winthrop's playing outside.
That's right. Winthrop plays outside.
You know, we talked about this.
yeah, we
So
did,
you're
we
right
did.
on the money.
Yeah. That's it.
Thank you, David.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes, indeed. All right.
So, moving on to considering a revised contract and renewal for the town manager. In your package, you have a new contract with the town manager. It's a 3-year contract what we've been doing is every year reviewing the contract and adding a year to it if we see fit. We conducted Eric's evaluation. It's a personnel matter. I don't get into a lot of specifics. However, it's a 360-degree evaluation with input from employees, town committees and boards, from some interlocal groups that we work with, and this board, and trying to think of who I'm leaving out. I'm leaving out somebody in that process.
You've got committees, employees,
Vendors,
vendors.
public.
Public,
Public.
okay, yep, those are all four. So, it was overwhelmingly positive. And so with that, and basically, looking at this contract, we are proposing to move Eric to a merit pay increase. Let me see, is that in here? Yes.
Yes.
Which his base salary as of October 1st, 2018 will be $62,250, beginning, and then annually at the anniversary of this contract. There's a change on the consumer price index. With that said, we asked two members of this committee, which were Dennis and Chris, to look into our wages as they compare to other areas. And then also, we discussed the merit that we felt was due. So do you want to characterize where we got some of our background information?
Well, we went to Maine Municipal Association and polled valuation, population, and county. And if you look at the annual salaries for each one of these, you'll find that Eric is below average in each one with his increase.
With the increase?
Yeah.
Yep. And again, all of that is within a range, and there's a
Yeah.
benefit package that comes into play there. So I don't think we're off the mark, but I think we're getting on the right mark, and that, as I've stated, the merit portion of this increase, I think, is very well deserved. So with that being the case, I'm going to propose that we approve the employment agreement and contract with Eric Dyer that you see in your contract, in your folder, for the 3-year period, with all the notations that are in it. And they're all minor changes except for the salary, obviously.
I'll second that motion.
It's been moved and seconded to approve this contract. We'll sign it tonight, if we approve it, that is. Is there a second, please?
I already gave the second.
Oh, you did? That's right, I moved it. Okay. So it's been moved and seconded. You know, Chair, I try not to actually move too many things, but every once in a while, I figure I should take the blame for that, or whatever it
It's
is,
okay.
and I'll move it. So is there any discussion on this?
I'd like us to just have some sort of a statement of why we felt that it was the right time for a merit increase. Is that something you could address, Bruce?
Sure, I'll be happy to. We have employed Eric for 3 years. All of his, and we look at various, really, I think, you know, it's a fairly in-depth review process. You know, we find him exceeding our expectations in the majority of the areas that we look at him in regards to. Everything else, he's at our expectations or a little better. So that's, you're probably blushing over there, but that's really the case here. I also want to say that the last several months have been challenging, and we have dealt with some difficult situations. And those situations are exactly that. They're situations. They're not devised by individuals or Eric taking actions that are outside the scope of his work or anything like that. And this board has unanimously a strong degree of confidence in Eric. And to the point that the board has asked me to go ahead and put a letter to note that in his personnel file. And so I'll be doing that and getting that approved by members of the board. So in a way, we just want to say that our confidence in Eric Dyer as our town manager and the job that he is doing is extremely high. Yes, there are challenges, as there always are. Some of them can be very difficult to deal with because we have well-meaning residents disagreeing with each other on something. So they become emotional. I think Eric's done a great job of navigating that, and I'm very happy to do everything I can to continue his leadership in our town for a long period of time.
Thank you.
Hear, hear.
And it is unanimous.
Yes.
Yeah.
Very.
So, at this point, we still have a vote waiting. So is there any further discussion? All in favor? Thank you.
Thank you. I appreciate all the positive feedback and the thoroughness of your review. It's always helpful to have somebody look closely at your work and look at areas where there may be opportunity for improvement or where I'm finding success. So I appreciate it, and I appreciate the support of the select board and of the community, because I would not be able to carry forward without having a lot of appreciation for the people that I work with and work for. So thank you all.
Oh, you've
Thank
done
you,
a
Eric.
really
You're
good
welcome.
job.
Yep.
Hear, hear.
It's a mutual feel-good
Admiration
situation.
Society.
It is.
Could I have a motion to extend the meeting by 10 minutes?
I move to extend the meeting for 10 minutes,
Second.
and 10 minutes only.
All in favor? Okay, so we have the next two items, 19-056 and 57, slated for about 25 minutes. We'll spend about 5 minutes on each. The first is to hold a development discussion for the traffic and parking ordinance. And basically, when we put this onto the agenda, we talked about, should we put this through a first reading and second reading process? This is a ordinance that is by law, set by the select board, not by town meeting. So it's basically to control your traffic and to do what you need to do in terms of getting things ready for snow clearance or whatever. So as a development topic or discussion, the idea was just to give you the opportunity to look through this and to make comments. With that in mind, if there's a high point comment that you feel absolutely compelled you needed to make tonight, please do. If not, I would ask you to read this and just give any feedback via email to Eric, because we will actually be putting this through 2 readings.
Okay.
So
Sounds good.
that's the point.
I
Was there
read-
anything?
I read through the whole thing, because I have a lot of interest in this, and I've worked on it in the past. And I
Good.
think it's a lovely document, if it can be lovely as a document. The only piece that's missing, that I'd like considered or explanation as to why it's not there, is parking in our park areas. So maybe at trailheads and at the community park behind the library, because at least one of those has been an issue brought up by residents over different time periods at the park. And the trailheads, and especially at the ball field, we've had, we've even made a motion here to have signs put up on the side of the road to please not park there during ball games and so on. And I think that would certainly fall into this document.
Yeah.
But if it doesn't, I'm open to hearing why it doesn't. So that would be my only
I think it
comment.
does, so
I think
I'll
everything
work
in
on
there
that.
is very fair and very clear.
Good, and I guess the only thing that I would be looking at, from my point of view, I was looking at number 12, which is enforcement and penalties, and pretty well described there in terms of penalties, but I'm always like, well, who really is the enforcing authority? Because we don't have a police force.
Right.
So we just have to think about that, and maybe if we can be slightly more specific. I don't know if we can, actually, but,
I think the clearest way to look at it first is that it would be a civil infraction.
right.
So it would
Maybe there's a
have
way
to-
of stating that.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah.
Okay, so
It's sort of-
are we all done with?
I think so.
Talking-
I think you might want to look at how dog licensing fee fines are
Yeah.
made.
Right.
You know, any sort of a fine like that, how is that handled, might be a way to
That's a good
approach
suggestion.
this in here.
It becomes administratively enforced,
Right, but
essentially.
no sense in having enforcement if you can't actually do it.
Right.
And some things need to be done.
And we can send Eric any further
Comments?
comments.
Yeah, please do. Because we're just going to go through a reading process, so, you know, we can have another version out and
Right.
Yep.
do a lot of correction to it if we need to. 19057 is to appoint a select board member to serve on the town clerk interview committee. And in your packet is the proposed hiring process for the town clerk, which includes an interview committee, and that includes a select board member. This is also your point where you say, Robin Lint has done an excellent job for many years for this town, and she's been a very valuable employee, and we're going to miss her. And so
She-
I am definitely saying that.
She has so much institutional knowledge that it's going to be so hard to replace.
And that's what I agree completely, and that's one of the things that I had discussed with Eric and individually with a couple of you, and was built into this process, is that we hire a new person to come on before Robin is completely gone, because we understand that you can hire someone who already has experience, but they don't understand the nuances of our particular town.
Right.
And bringing someone up to date on that will create so many fewer issues in the future.
Yeah, agreed.
And it's a huge appreciation for what Robin has for knowledge and has already been sharing with people like Kristen and other
Yeah.
staff.
Yep.
But she has been doing it for so long, and she does it so well, that it's going to be a transition for us.
It will be. And, you know, we might even at some point add in, it's not part of the hiring process. An exit interview process may be very appropriate with Robin, just to see if there's some loose ends that we need to catch, or some perspectives that she has in an exit interview. So obviously, you can do that as the manager, but if you have any thoughts about that, you might want to pursue that.
Yeah, excellent
Of course, you see her every single day, so we can make some determinations in regards to that.
And I'd also,
So
like,
this,
can I make a
yeah,
request?
please.
I think it might be appropriate, but Eric, this isn't my call, but I would imagine there will be some sort of a goodbye celebration. And where she's our town clerk, there might be it might be a nice gesture to have some sort of a public open house, so that the public who wishes to could come in and express their gratitude for her service and well wishes for the future. Formal, not formal, I don't care. It would be nice for me to be able to come and do something like that. She's not my employee, but as a resident of the town, I've enjoyed working with Robin. She's helped me with lots of things, so.
And since she's the one that usually plans these things,
Someone else is going to need to do that.
Have to send out an email blast about her own party.
Exactly. And I think it would be befitting for the town to do
Yes.
that, and I, as a select board member, would support whatever you would choose to do to honor Robin in her leaving and her retirement.
Something like a formal, really nice dance. We could call it the Lint Ball.
yes. There you go.
Sorry. Sorry about that. Thank you for not yelling.
I won't.
I'm done,
So
thank
back
you.
to the, thank you, that's a very good
I
idea.
agree, yeah.
So we should do that,
I mean, if there's a cost involved, we have select board funds that could be used
absolutely.
Yeah.
to do that.
So what we need is someone who basically, over the next 4 or 5 weeks, is going to be involved as a select board member to go through the applications with whatever process that's noted here. I'm not sure how many initial interviews it will be, but there will be some, and I'm hoping that we have a wide enough net that there'll be several, so we can take a look at a range of applicants. So that would be the commitment. And
I nominate
who
should
would
do it.
Well, let's start with who has the time and would like to.
Yeah, 'cause
at the interest level.
That's why I'm going to take myself out of it.
Okay.
And I expressed a desire to do it, but I'm not sure I'm the one who has the most time available, so it would be a little harder to schedule around me, but I'm certainly willing to do the job.
What are you looking for, time-wise?
Well,
Afternoons, evenings?
Yeah, probably evenings, because oftentimes when we're interviewing
People work.
people that are working.
Yeah.
So I would say evenings and perhaps a Saturday in January, early January, depending on how it goes. Sometimes you can get 3 or 4 people done on a Saturday afternoon, and it can be a easier way than trying to fight to get people together on a Wednesday evening. So my hope is that we can do a balanced process here. I can take a look, maybe do some preliminary review. Obviously, I would send all of the applications that we have to all of the members of the interview committee, but probably make a first pass and say, these 4 or 5 probably not, these 4 or 5 probably so, and then maybe have a committee meeting to discuss and confirm some of that, and then move on to scheduling interviews and have hopefully 1 interview per each, and if necessary, maybe a follow-up with the top 2 candidates perhaps. So, but I don't know. It could be that it's very clear from the very beginning, but it could take, as you've seen with some of the town manager searches, a couple passes and 3 or 4 follow-up interviews. So, my hope is that it'll be fairly clean, but can't promise anything.
I would volunteer, but I think probably Bruce should do it.
I'm happy to do it. I just don't want to always, I don't mind doing it, but I don't want to always be the person who's doing something that's involved in a town like this. Simply, I want to spread that around, okay? What I was going to say is that if someone else does want to do the interviewing, I would be very happy to also, because I've done a lot of it, help design the interview. And while that may sound counterintuitive to help design an interview but not do it, I have a lot of interviewing experience on what they call behavioral interviewing, and I'm a big fan of it.
Well, that's why I think you should be the one.
Then I'll be happy to do it. So the board doesn't need to formally appoint me, I don't think, well.
If you would rather just do the appointing, and Chris is willing, then we could have Chris do the interview part and you do the formulation part.
Well, Chris has got a full plate too, so.
Or I can do it.
Yeah.
Whatever makes you the most comfortable, let's go with that.
All I'm saying is there'll be other opportunities, I think, for board members to be designated, like Heritage Days or whatever. And so I just, I don't mind doing this. I don't mind doing this at all.
But this is my worst.
Well, then I would like to nominate, or yes, I would like to have Bruce be our representative for the town clerk hiring process.
We don't need to, we just need to.
We can do that by
I say
consensus.
yes.
Okay.
Yeah,
May I have a motion to adjourn?
I move to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor?